Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you once again on this here Shabbat. Just hope you all had a blessed week and that you've prospered. I mean, that's my hope for all of you, is that you will be healthy, be whole, be, prosper, that your soul will prosper even as your physical financial situation prospers. And it's not been too bad this week for us. I mean, we've it's still a struggle, but we're gonna just keep believing that the Father will watch out for us and take care of us. I still got this cough. I just can't seem to shake it. And, I just look at it as it's probably, Satan coming at me. I mean, but I'm not going to dwell on that. But this week, I'm kind of going back over some things I've talked about in the past. But I think that they're, I just feel that they, something's telling me that this is something that I really need to get across to people, that they got to understand what's going on, and that we believers are called to be watchmen. So the title of this study is The Watchmen. I've talked about what the book of Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 17, how that Ezekiel lived in the 6th century BC. Okay, the house of Israel went into captivity, and I believe it was Sennacherib was the ruler of the Assyrians at the time. And they laid siege against Samaria and the northern tribes. And they took them into captivity around 739 BC. And the Assyrian Empire fell somewhere around 630 BC to a confederacy of countries, the Medes, the Babylonians, and the Persians. They joined together and came against the Assyrians. And of course, it's, I'm not going to read it, but it was prophesied that this would happen to the Assyrians. And it even tells exactly how. That there would be a flood that would come. It would knock down one of their walls and allow these Confederates to be able to come right in. And they were all drunk. They, because they lived inside a city that was, they've discovered the ancient city of Nineveh back in the 1800s. And from what they've discovered, it was a massive city. It was like 100 square miles. And it had 2 walls. It had an outer wall and an inner wall. And the walls were so big and thick that 4 chariots could race around the walls. That's just how big these walls were. But there was a storm had came way up in the mountains, to the northeast of there, and there was a huge flood. I mean, a huge wall of water came down from up there, and it knocked down one of their northeastern ramparts, and it opened it up to where the Medes and the Persians and the Babylonians could come in and take it over. And the people of Nineveh, because they trusted in their walls to protect them, that they were drunk partying and stuff. And of course they, got routed. And after that, the house of Israel, which had been in captivity under them, and we're still under them, and this is over 100 years later. They, basically the Medes and Persians and all them, because a lot of them had been in captivity and stuff too, but they managed to, I guess, somehow or another, they managed to, gather up and rebel against the Assyrians because they got lax or whatever. They just decadent, just like what you see happening here in the United States. We're not the country we once were. I mean, we are weak. The people are weak and soft. During the back in the day, during World War II and World War I and all, and other time, and time before that, people were tough. They were tough people and resilient. And I'm not saying that everybody in America is, powder puffs and weak. There is still a lot of tough people, but not nowhere near the way that it was, less than 100 years ago. And now, we have this invasion going on down here, and people. It is an invasion, folks. I've talked about it, in the previous videos, that these people are not coming here to pick our crops. They're, or to work or whatever, or even to be voters for the Democrats. That's not what they're coming here for. Yeah, there are some that are, migrants that are, looking for a better life. I'm not saying that all of them are military age men that are coming here to do us harm. But I would say the majority of them are. And they're being moved all over the country. And just a couple of days ago, the sheriff, I think it's Brockton County or something like that in Ohio. You can go look this up. I mean, it's not something I'm making up. You can just go in there and put sheriff of Ohio, gives warning or whatever. But just recently, all the sheriffs from all over the United States, over 3,000 counties, they all went to Washington, D.C. for a big conference they have up there. And Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, came out and gave a lecture or whatever, speech to them, and he told them that there was more red flags popping up than did before 9/11. That terrorist acts were going to start being committed here on U.S. soil. And I believe they're going to attack our infrastructure. I believe they already have been. There's been several train incidences that were mighty suspicious. And one of them dumped a bunch of chemicals in a river over there in the Yellowstone. I think it's the Yellowstone River. Dumped a bunch of that in, and it flows into the Missouri River, which ultimately flows into the Mississippi, and it was highly contaminating chemicals. And then they had another one, and like the one there in East Palestine, Palestine or whatever it is there in Ohio, and they didn't respond at all. I mean, and for weeks, and this stuff was being pumped. This what was it? Not nylon, but some kind of a plastic or plasticizer or something like that right there that was just spewing out. I mean, burning. And no telling what effects that stuff's going to have on people and on their land and everything, because that area over there is like farm country. And so you got all these people coming over here, and I've seen these caravans, just video footage of it, coming up from Central and South America on up through Mexico, and I mean, these things are endless. They're still endless. I mean, they ain't letting up at all, and I told you that it's being funded by the United Nations, by the WEF, by people like George Soros. They're the ones that are funding these people coming there. They're paying for their plane tickets or whatever, boats or whatever, to get them over here. They're not all from South America and Central America. In fact, a lot of them countries, they don't want their people coming up here. They need them. They need their people. They need them to work and to produce and pay taxes and, help lift up their own countries. No, but they're being paid to come up here. And they're coming up here to stir trouble. And our own government, the CIA and all that bunch, they are in on it. They want to use them against us. And I believe it's so that they will have justification for martial law or some kind of a house to house, grab, because whenever these people start doing this kind of stuff, you got Americans that will fight. I mean, former military people and all. Sorry about that, folks. That cat, she just sat up there all that time, and now she wants to jump down here right in my lap. But, there are elements, the deep state, the shadow government, that they have ulterior motives for this stuff, and I've talked about that too, the globalists, the world order, and all that stuff. They figure if they can get enough stuff going on, then the American people will fight back. There's going to be an element of Americans that will fight. And, to fight back against this stuff. Well, then they're going to use that as justification to try to go around and begin to try to seize people's weapons, door to door or whatever. And that's the whole idea behind the Second Amendment is, to be able to not just protect us from an invasion, but to protect us from a rogue government. I mean, and that's why in our school systems and stuff, they do not teach the Constitution. They don't teach the Bill of Rights. They don't teach any of that stuff. They don't teach any of our history. Because they don't want our young people to understand about being a constitutional republic. They want everybody to believe that we're a democracy. And a democracy is one step from being communist. That's all it is. It's a form of pre-communism. And if you listen to the Democrats particularly, and I don't want to get all political, but if you listen to them, they just are democracy, democracy, democracy. They never say constitutional republic or republic. They don't say it at all. And they've even got other people, like even the so-called right or the Republicans or whatever, they got them saying the same thing, democracy, democracy. Well, and they say, you're trying to destroy our democracy. Well, yeah, yeah, we are. Because we're not a democracy. We are a representative government, a constitutional republic. And under democracy, it's mob rule, majority rule. And that's not the way our system was set up. It was set up in a way to where the individual had a voice and had protections against the mob, against the majority. And so, America's been so dumbed down, our young people and all. I mean, it's really sad that they don't know anything. And yet they think they know it all. I mean, they're completely ignorant. You can ask them, I'm not saying 100% of them. I mean, there are some young people who are knowledgeable. They understand about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and representative government and all. But this stuff that's happening is a part of the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. I mean, this is what God will allow to happen to a people when they turn their back on Him and they, fall into idolatry. And of course, America is an idolatrous nation. And I mean, it ain't something recent. It's something that's been going on for a long time. And it primarily comes from the Freemasons. And they've infiltrated all the churches, denominational churches. They've infiltrated all of them. They some of them are, deacons, and they offer them offer these Freemasons the handshake of brotherhood, and that's, you can't. For what does, righteousness have to do with unrighteousness? What does, what fellowship does darkness have with light? I mean, it doesn't. And so they have infiltrated, and if you look at, once your eyes are opened, you begin to see this stuff everywhere. I mean, there's, Freemason lodges everywhere. And on buildings everywhere, there's, Sorry about that interruption, folks. Phone call, and I had put it on airplane mode to keep that from happening anymore. But, so we can see, all this stuff that's, and it's accelerating. I mean, it really is accelerating. And so I just, I've read this before, but I'm going to read it again. This is Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 17, verses so I'm going to just start at 17. It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. So that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be watchmen over the house of Israel. And I've, done studies on who they are. I mean, they're not the lost 10 tribes. That's a big deception. They're not lost. They lost their identity, but the people are still here, and they've never gone anywhere. They've never just disappeared. No, they got scattered out. Scattered Israel. And there's a difference between scattered Israel and Judah. You got to, people have to get that in their mind when it's talking about Israel. It's not talking about Judah, because they never became one Israel again. They never did. They split during the time of Rehoboam and Jeroboam. They split into two separate kingdoms, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. They never united again. And both of them got scattered. But Judah, some of the people of Judah, the Benjamites, the Levites, they have returned to the land over there. But not all. And not all those over there that say they're Jews are. I mean, and Christ made that clear. There are those who say they're Jews, but they are not. They're of the synagogue of Satan. All right? But the house of Israel, they got scattered out for over 2,500 years before they began their ascension. And that was the British Commonwealth and the United States and other countries like the Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, northern France. These are also people who are descended from the ancient house of Israel. But just like the ancient house of Israel went into idolatry, I mean, almost from the day one, under Jeroboam, he's the one that began the idol worship, putting those bulls in Samaria and up in the area where the tribe of Dan was at. And of course, Dan, that's a whole nother, lesson there. I mean, when you look at Dan and how he's moved around, to Sparta and to other countries, to Spain and then over into Scotland. But that's for another time. But so these people moved into these areas, and of course, just like them, we've gone into this idolatry. The Freemasons came over here in the 1700s, and they're the ones that really started the revolution in 1750s. When I think it started, or the 1760s, and up till 1776 when they declared their independence. When you go back and you start reading, if you read the Puritans and even some of the later Puritans, they talk about how the Illuminati and which the Illuminati was established in 1776, same year as our year of independence, over in I think it was in Bavaria. Adam Weishaupt, and he was financed and encouraged to do this by the Rothschilds. And ultimately they wound up integrated into the Freemasons. But Freemasonry, it didn't just start back then. It's been around a long time. And, the trappings of it have been around for thousands of years. But they integrated into them and they used Freemasonry as a recruiting tool, to recruit like-minded people, globalist-minded people. You got your porch masons, that's just your regular old run-of-the-mill masons, that make it, up through a couple of degrees. And that's pretty much it. To them, it's just like being in a social club or something. But then you have the diehard people, the ones that really want to work their way up through all the degrees, and learn the secret knowledge. And they know how to look for these people. I mean, if you... And they'll, help them along, get them through the degrees and stuff. The other ones, they won't make no, effort to help them or do anything with them. They just, they're there as facade. And so they look at it as a way to recruit like-minded, globalist-minded people, and to promote them up through the ranks and initiations, and then they want to put them in places of power, in the places of where they can be utilized. And they've been doing this ever since the Revolution. I mean, this is not something new. And when you look at the people like Thomas Jefferson, him and LaFont, they're the ones that laid out Washington, D.C., and I mean, if you look at an aerial view of Washington, D.C., it's got a pentagram, open pentagram, which is supposed to be the most powerful symbol in the occult. And then there's an owl that's going side to side like this here. There's a big owl. And that's the symbol of, Moloch. And also, I think it's associated with Lilith. But And then you got the Washington Monument and the Capitol, and then the reflecting pool in between. So as above, so below, that kind of thing. And this is a phallic symbol. This is a vaginal symbol. That's what they are. And then when you if you go on a tour around Washington, you'll see idols everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, from one end of Washington to the other. And so, and that's exactly what happened to the house of Israel. They were everywhere. I've talked about that, where you'd go up to somebody's house, and they'd have a gate, and right there by the gate, they would have the symbol of their god or whatever, or even have a little statue or something in a little niche, their household god or whatever. I mean, that's, and that's the way it is now here in America and in the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth and in these other European countries and all. Same thing. I mean, you look back over there, over in Switzerland, they put that Gotthard Tunnel in over there that come from, I think it comes from up at Bern, or not Bern, but one of the bigger cities of Switzerland, and goes through a mountain and comes out down there close to where CERN is. When they dedicated that tunnel, I mean, you can go look this up too, dedication of the Gotthard Tunnel. It's a ritual. I mean, it is a ritual, and they are calling up these spirits out of the abyss, out of the Abuso, out of Tartarus. And they got an image that comes up there of it's the beast or the destroyer, Apollyon, Abaddon, Hindu, Shiva, the god of destruction and creation. And there at CERN, they got a big statue out there of that, of Shiva and doing his dance of destruction in a big wheel, and whether it's true or not, I don't know, but there is people that work there, scientists and stuff, physicists, that claim that they have saw Shiva. That when they were doing one of these experiments where they was colliding these particles there, and what people don't understand is that the last one they did, because it takes several years for them to set these things up to where they can, they have to go through, and because the energy that they're producing is so incredible. They are producing in one, trillionth of a second. They are producing more energy than the entire world consumes in a year. That may seem far-fetched, but it's not. They're colliding these particles, these protons, at near the speed of light. And the energy that they release whenever they collide is just... These cats, man. Is incredible. I mean, it's just incredible. And my belief is, of course, this is just my take on it. I believe they're trying to open Tartarus, the bottomless pit. And one of the reasons why that would make sense is most people don't know, but the temple of Apollo was right there in that general area where that collider is. And it was the city during the time of Rome was called Apollyonicon. And they built that temple to Apollo there. And it was claimed that it was built over the seal that seals up the Abuso, the bottomless pit. And in Revelation, it says, and I saw a star coming down out of heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit. And it was opened up, and it released the destroyer, Apollyon, Abaddon, and a horde of these chimeras. And it describes them, as being like locusts. They weren't locusts. It says they have a face like a man, hair like a woman. They got crowns on their heads. They run like horses. They got tails that are like scorpion stingers, and they got wings like locusts. And they come up out of there, and they go out around the world to torment those people who have taken the mark of the beast, or who do not have the seal of Elohim. And of course, the seal of Elohim, as I've talked about, is worshiping on the Sabbath, the true Sabbath. Because if you can go back here in, I think it's in Leviticus maybe, where it says that the Sabbath is a seal upon his people. But anyway, it says he's made us watchmen. He's talking to again, Assyria has been in or the house of Israel's been in captivity. They're coming to the end. They've come to the end of their captivity, because their captivity ended about 100 years after it began in 739. So around 630 BC, somewhere along in there, it ended. All right, now, Ezekiel lived in the 6th century, which would be the 500s, 560, 570, somewhere along in there. So he's prophesying to be a watchman over the house of Israel. Okay, and so he's the watchman over the house of Israel. Well, if they had already gone into captivity, and now they're being dispersed, they're scattered. Well, how can he be a watchman? This is talking future here, because this is a prophetic book. All right, but he also talks about Judah too, because Judah's captivity is coming here just a little ways on down the line here. So he's told to prophesy against them too. And of course, against Jerusalem. And that's where the capital of the house of Judah was at. The kingdom of Judah was Jerusalem. It says, when I say unto thee wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand. And so the reason I'm really wanting to emphasize this here is that these, the people, the ancient house of Israel, the people of the United States, the British colony, we believers are watchmen. And we are required to warn them, or else their blood is going to be required at our hand. And of course, a lot of them are not going to want to receive it. They're not going to want to receive it at all. And in fact, ultimately they will kill you, or kill me, or drive us out into the wilderness or somewhere to try to get away from them. It says, yet if thou warn the wicked, and he turn not from his wickedness, nor from his wicked way, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul. Again, when a righteous man doth turn from his righteousness, and commit iniquity, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die. But thou hast not given him warning, because thou hast not given him warning. He shall die in his sin, and his righteousness which he hath done shall not be remembered. But his blood will I require at thine hand. Nevertheless, if thou warn the righteous man that the righteous sin not, and he doth not sin, he shall surely live, because he is warned. Also thou hast delivered thy soul. And the hand of Yahweh was there upon me, and he said unto me, Arise, go forth into the plain, and I will there talk with thee. And of course he goes out into the plain of Chebar, near the river Chebar, and he gets a vision, and he's told, and this is Ezekiel chapter 4. It says, beginning at verse 1, chapter 4 of Ezekiel, verse 1. Thou also, son of man, take thee a tile and lay it upon thee, and portray upon it the city, even Jerusalem. Now, see, here's where he's prophesying Jerusalem, the siege of Jerusalem, and ultimately their destruction and being carried away into captivity. It says, and lay siege against it, and build a fort against it, and cast a mount against it. Set the camp also against it, and set the battering rams against it round about. And this is exactly what happened. This is exactly what the Babylonians did. They laid siege against it, and it got so bad, not just like there in Israel, in the house of Israel, it got so bad that when they were laid siege there on them in Samaria, they were eating their own children and stuff. And it was going on there too, because they couldn't get no food, and so... and it says, they were saying to each other, today we'll eat your child, tomorrow we'll eat mine. I mean, that's just exactly, and that's exactly what people go into. And it even talks about that there in Deuteronomy, that they will go into cannibalism. That's like the final stage of the apostasy, is when they began to go into cannibalism. And if you do a little research about the Anasazi, and I'm talking about not the mainstream narrative of it, but what the local peoples around out there, the Navajo and the Hopi and the Zunis and different ones, have to say in their tradition about the Anasazi, they ultimately, that's what they did. They went into cannibalism, and then it says a portal opened up, giants came through it and eat them. And when you look at what it talks about there in Christ in Matthew 24, as it was in the days of Noah, about the Abuso being opened up and these things coming out of there. Also, Joel's army in the book of Joel, that when they get to that point where they're doing that kind of stuff, eating their own children and eating each other, that's when these things will start happening. That's when it'll just get really, really bad, man. I mean, it'll be so bad that people will be eating one another, and then these things will come out and start eating them. And they're here already. They're down in the earth. They're hiding out down there, waiting for the day whenever they're allowed to come back out. And occasionally people see these things. I guess like Sasquatches and stuff like that, and these skinwalkers. And other things that they talk about people seeing and all, down in the jungles down there in Peru and stuff. They're beginning to start appearing, so I think it's only going to get worse. And so it says, moreover, take thou unto thee an iron pan, and set it for a wall of iron between thee and the city, and set thy face against it, and it shall be besieged, and thou shalt lay siege against it. This shall be a sign to the house of Israel. Lie thou, and this is to the house of Israel, and this sign to the house of Israel is for the future. Because again, they've already done gone into captivity and done been scattered. Alright, it says, lie thou also upon thy left side, and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it, according to the number of the days that thou shalt lie upon it. Thou shalt bear their iniquity. For I have laid upon thee the years of their iniquity according to the number of the days, 390 days. So 390 years that they lived in iniquity. All right. And so, and again in Leviticus, I believe it's in Leviticus chapter 26, it talks about if you live in iniquity, in idolatry, you'll be punished a year, 7 years for every year that you lived in idolatry. So their total time of, I think it's 2,730 years. So from the time that they began living in iniquity until they began to rise up again was around 2,700 years. That's when England, the British Commonwealth and the United States started coming up in the early 1800s, which would have been around 2,700 years. And so, and it says, and when thou hast accomplished them, this is, it says, when he accomplished the 390 days laying on his side and bearing the iniquity, it says, when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on their right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah. 40 days have I appointed thee, each day 4 years. So they lived in this idolatrous iniquity for 40 years. But it says, it talks about how they did worse. They did even worse than the house of Israel did. And it says, therefore thou shalt set thy face toward the siege of Jerusalem, and thine arm shall be uncovered, and thou shalt prophesy against it. And behold, I will lay bands upon thee, and thou shalt not turn thee from one side to another till thou hast ended the days of thy siege. And then and this is where he talks about him making Ezekiel bread. But he he's prophesied against both of them. And again, this 40 days and all that stuff against the house of Judah, that's prophesying against them today too, because they're not living right. They still deny the Messiah, and not only that, they're getting ready to start sacrifices over there again. And that all ended with Christ. There is no more sacrifice. And so that is abomination. For them to start that back up again. Because for one, he is not going to receive it. I mean, and they're not doing it to him. They're doing it to their false god. And of course, they're going to suffer for it. They're going to suffer tremendously, just like the house of Israel is going to suffer tremendously too, and we already see it. I mean, you look at what's, and so now I'll look here at Isaiah, and this will, you read this, man, and this is, if this ain't what we're seeing going on in our country today, I don't know what else to tell you. It says, and the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and Yahuwah alone shall be exalted in that day, and the idols he shall utterly abolish, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth, for fear of Yahuwah, and for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. In that day a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to go into the clefts of the rocks and into the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of Yahuwah, and for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Cease ye from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? And of course, that's, we're going to see that. And this here also, let's see. I thought I marked it. see. Yeah, 6:10. Let's see, that was 2:17. Here we go. And of course, I've read this, several times before, but it bears repeating. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. And this is Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20 and through 23. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine and men of strength to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. And do we not see that? I mean, do we not see that happening where people are being, that the wicked are being, justifying the wicked? They like up there in New York where them migrants beat them police officers. They lock them up and they turn around and let them out without bail. And they flee. I mean, what do they expect? I mean, if that's not reward for wickedness, I don't know what is. And I mean, they do that with everybody. Same thing out in California. I mean, they just, you can go beat somebody half to death and they'll lock you up and turn you right back out. No bail. I mean, so they justify the wicked for reward. Somebody is getting paid to do it. Somebody's being rewarded. And of course, it's well established now that George Soros has funded all of these liberal, criminal-loving DAs. I mean, that he helped them get elected. And of course they do his bidding. And that's what they want. They want to create chaos. Out of chaos order, authoritarian order. And of course I talk about this stuff, but whether it goes in, but if you don't see this kind of stuff going on, then you've had your eyes blinded. And then, of course, I talk about this chapter all the time. Deuteronomy chapter 28. The blessings and the cursings. And, this was, what people don't fail to understand is this applied, to Israel, because Israel was supposed to be a light to the world. They were supposed to be, the people of the Most High, and they were supposed to set an example for the rest of the world of righteousness and, following Elohim's law and keeping his law and to be a light to the rest of the world. And, because there was people that, heard and saw and all, and they Gentiles that would come there and convert, become Hebrews. Because they knew that they were blessed. They were blessed because, when they were doing rightly, when they were doing, because the first part of chapter 28 is the blessings. That he talks about how he'll bless them in the fields, bless them in the fruit of their loins, bless them in their wealth, gold, and that they'll loan and not borrow, and that they'll be the head and not the tail, and they'll get rain in due season and all that. But when you come to the curses, here in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 14, and thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them, because this is always what ends up being the real crux of it. And it's just like them, same thing with us here in America, and really the whole world. But there was a lot of these countries, these Gentile countries, that was their, they had been given over to these gods and stuff back at Babel. I mean, they were still under them. But they is people out of all of these nations that the Father has drawn to Messiah. Whether it's in China, India, Russia, Africa, that there's peoples from all of these places that have been called out. Because God is no respecter of persons. It says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Yahuwah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Yahuwah shall make thee pestilence cleave unto thee. And pestilence, of course you can say, well, pestilence is, locust or insects or something, but pestilence is also disease, like viruses and bacterias and stuff. It says, Yahuwah shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee until he hath consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. Yahuwah shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning or irritation, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And there's all these ailments that are stuff that weird stuff that nobody's ever heard of. All these weird cancers, and the mildew and stuff like that. It's black mold that's everywhere now. And when I was growing up, I never heard of no black mold, never seen any, and now it's everywhere. And and it shall pursue thee until thou perish. And then, like I say, all these pestilence, the ailment that I shall not mention because of censorship and pulling down my videos, but that's a type of plague. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. And out there in California, of course, now they're getting, a deluge out there, massive flooding and stuff. At least that's what the news reports. I ain't out there, so I don't know firsthand, because you can't really believe anything that the mainstream media, even the weather, you can't believe what they tell you. It's pretty sad, but you just can't believe anything that the mainstream media tells you. You just can't. But, there for years, for like 5-7 years, something like that. I mean, they had these just severe droughts out there, all out there, and that's, Southern California is where all of the, vegetables and stuff are grown. I mean, a huge portion of them, and stuff like almonds and avocados and lemons and oranges and other fruits. And now Northern California is where they grow the grapes and stuff like that. And there's a lot of farming up there, a lot of fertile valleys and stuff. But that down there in Southern California, though, where they grow, in that San Joaquin Valley and all down there, where they grow, just tremendous amounts of vegetables, lettuce and asparagus and, cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers and, on and on. They've had a severe drought down there. I mean, a lot of land, they just had to quit trying to even farm it because they didn't have the water to irrigate it. It says, Yahweh shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways from before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And of course, this is when you get towards the end of it is enslavement. And they will invade you and attack you and kill you. And then when you're beaten down enough, then they, demoralized and because, it talks about that Satan, the wicked want to wear out the saints. They want to wear you out. And the way they do is that they attack you from every direction. And I've talked about that, how they're attacking us from every possible direction that they can attack us. With the sicknesses, with the chemtrailing or the stratospheric aerosol injection, pumping all these metals and chemicals and stuff into the air, and to make us sick and to poison us with metals, the food, the meat and all that stuff. They're injecting it with stuff, the stuff that I can't mention, but they're injecting it with that stuff. And so they're going to put it in you one way or the other. And then they're, the vegetables and the fruits and all that stuff being genetically modified. You go, like I said before, you go in the store and grab up any item in there just about it and look on it, and it's going to have, bioengineered food ingredient, or genetically engineered, or genetically modified. And what's funny is that the rest of the world, they don't have that stuff. They won't, over in Europe and places like that, they ban it. Same thing in other countries besides them. And there's all kinds of stuff that that we're we have on our shelves over here, food and beverages and stuff that they ban. They do not allow. But it's all allowed here. And it's by design. They won't, but it's also because of ignorance. The American people are so ignorant about what is being put in their food, what's being pumped in the air, what's in the water, what's in everything. And they're, like in the water, hexafluorethane, fluoride, but it ain't natural fluoride. It's the byproduct of chemical waste from manufacturing processes that, when combined, produces this hexafluoromethane or ethane or something like that, and they take and drip it into the water system. And what it does is calcifies your pineal gland, which is the transceiver. That's the transceiver. It's like a little pine cone, and it's how we communicate to our Creator. And And of course, there is ways to decalcify it, and one of them is boron. But see, they trying their best to get, make it so, holistic medicine. They want to try to do away with it, because the herbs and the plants and the seed-bearing trees and all are for our health. That's what our Creator made for our health. And they trying to do it. And not only that, now they want to do away with backyard gardening. It produces 5 times more carbon footprint than conventional farming, which is a bunch of malarkey. I mean, if you're going out there and you take a little old tiller and you till up a place out there, and then the rest of it's all done by hand. Now, how in the world, does that constitute 5 times? And this is what's really crazy too. And I've mentioned this, that I think right now that the CO2 level in the atmosphere is something like 400 parts per million. And they're saying, oh, we got to get carbon dioxide down. It's, causing climate change and all that stuff, which is malarkey. There is a whole lot of climate scientists that are saying that no, we need more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We need like 1,000 parts per million, because everything that's plant-based life depends on carbon dioxide. And if you look around, you see how the trees and plants and stuff are all looking sick. They all look sickly. I mean, they're just not healthy. And it's not just because of that, but it's because of the stuff they're pumping in the air. Because that stuff comes back down. Whatever goes up, it comes back down. And it's being absorbed by the trees and by the plants and all that stuff. And, these metals and stuff, aluminum, barium, strontium-90, on and on and on. And a lot of stuff we don't even know what they're putting up there. I think a lot of it, the stuff they're putting out is killing a wildlife like deer and stuff like that. That what they call it, the turning sickness, where they go around. It's almost like the wildebeest over there, where they get them tsetse flies up their nose, and they lay eggs in their in their brain or whatever, and it causes them to start going around and around and around and around until they die. And or the zombie sickness or something that they say that these deer are getting, where they just like, and other animals. And of course, I think it's it's all about food control. They want to have absolute control over food and food production, and they want people to eat insects and frankenfood. Lab-grown stuff. And I mean, I've listened to these people. Again, this is why it's important, to go listen to some of these World Economic Forum conferences that have over in Davos, Switzerland. They have them every year. And listen to these people. Listen to what they're telling you that they're going to do. They ain't telling you what they want to do. They're telling you what they're going to do. And they have already started implementing it. Insect flour. Cricket flour. I mean, you better be looking at your labels and stuff and look up what the scientific or the Latin name for these crickets are. The Americus and stuff. I forgot it, but it's something Americus, which is American crickets. And they raise them by the billions or trillions or whatever in, food in these factories, and then they take them and make them into a flour, and they got chitin in them. Chitin is horrible for your digestive system. And, and in Scripture there in Leviticus, it tells you what you can eat. The Levitical diet, the biblical diet. You can eat grasshoppers, and you can eat a locust, and you can eat a certain kind of beetle. But that's it. That's all that it says you can eat of the insects. So anything else, I mean, because John the Baptist, he eat wild honey and locust. And so those you can eat and they ain't going to harm you. But Crickets, yeah. Any other kind of insects, they got chitin in them, and that chitin is terrible for your digestive system. Well, they're putting it in everything now. Up there in Canada, they're it's in all of the, like potato chips or sun chip, the kind of, they're not potato chips, they're like the formulated chips and stuff, the ones that are, like the puffs and the the like the chips that, like the kind of come in the little tube, that are a mixture of stuff, and they make a chip like out of them. It's not like a potato that's just sliced up potatoes. That's obvious that that's a potato, but when you're talking about these ones, these chips and stuff that are made, made in like a mush or something, and then they take and roll it out and make chips out of it, or they make puffs out of it, or whatever. Yeah, they're putting it in that, and and then like the frankenfood, the lab grown meat, fast food chains are using that. I'm not going to name particular chain, but they had a hamburger that it used to years ago. I mean, they would, I loved them, and I could eat a couple of them, and I went there. I guess it's probably been a couple years now. I got one, and I took one bite out of it, and I threw it away. I couldn't eat it. I mean, it was nasty. It wasn't. I knew it wasn't meat. And and you got people that want to try to say, oh, you shouldn't eat meat, and all that stuff. Well, the Bible doesn't say that. In fact, it says that just not to be a glutton over meat. Don't gorge yourself, but they eat a lot of meat. I mean, the Hebrew people raised sheep, and they raised cattle, they raised goats. That's what they lived on. That was their primary food, and the fat from beef and lamb is absolutely imperative for your brain health. I mean, you have to have it, and the vitamin B12, and other B vitamins and stuff, I mean, that you can't really get anywhere else. And yet that's why. And they're all in league, the big pharma, they're in league, and they're in league with our government, with the FDA and the CDC and the CAC and all these different, and Health and Human Service, or the National Institutes of Health. They're all in league together. Pushing these mandates and all that kind of stuff to enrich the pharmacos, that to try and force these things on us so that they can enrich them, and of course the health problems that people are suffering now. I mean, it's unreal to come from that. But it says I lost my place here. It says, and thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. In other words, shoo them away. It says, Yahweh will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, and whereof they canst not be healed. And there's all these infirmities that people have got now that you can't get rid of it. Says, and Yahweh shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Madness. I mean, when you listen to some of these people out here, I mean, they are literally mad at the things they say and the things they do. madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And blindness is talking about spiritual blindness, you know. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Does that not happen now? Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. And that's happening more and more. That, you know, people build houses, and they don't even get to live in them. They get married, and somebody else ends up laying with their wife. To plant vineyards, and somebody else gathers the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thy hands, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Or thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemy's hands, and thou shalt not have none to rescue them. And is that not happening? I mean, our government knows to season animals from people, making them plow under their fields, and making them cull hundreds of thousands of heads of animals, taking them away. Look at that guy up there, that Amish guy up there in Pennsylvania, up there in Lancaster. How they come in there and seized all his stuff, fined him a great big huge fine. I mean, that's still ongoing. I mean, but, you know, it's just crazy. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. Child trafficking, human trafficking, you know, grabbing people up. I mean, in cities. I mean, this is going on right now, day in and day out, all over the country. Grabbing up, you know, women and children, hauling off, and people never seeing them again. And it says there shall be no might in their hand. In other words, there's nothing they can do about it. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. Is it not true that most of, you know, now most of the production of our farms and stuff is going to other countries? Not even being used here. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And, I mean, aren't people mad and angry about the things that are going on that they see? Yahweh shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. And there is some ailments and stuff like that are going around now. Yahweh shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And of course that's coming. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Yahweh shall lead thee. And of course, you know, that's yet to come, but it's coming. It says, thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes from them, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall go up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And we see that too. You know, how people, strangers that, you know, that have come into the country now, they up over big corporations and they sit on boards, they're in government positions, they've been put up high, and we've, you know, become very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Did we not see that going on? We used to be the largest lender nation in the world. Now we're the largest debtor nation. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And you know, yes, was Israel and all that he was talking to here, but this applies to all humanity. This is not just a Hebrew thing. This is a human thing. And if you don't hearken to him, to his voice, keep his commandments and statutes which he commanded thee, and that command is to all of us, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not Yahweh thy Elohim, with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Of course, that was with the house of Israel. That was Assyria. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, nor oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he hath destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedest, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, throughout all thy land, which Yahweh thy Elohim hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body. And listen to what I'm saying here. The fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yahweh thy Elohim hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward her husband, the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear the glorious and fearful name, Yahweh thy Elohim, then the Lord will make the plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt which thou wast afraid of. And they shall cleave unto thee, and also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of the law, them will Yahweh bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude. Because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim. And it shall come to pass that as Yahuwah rejoiced over you to do good to you, and to multiply you, so Yahuwah will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And Yahuwah shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but Yahuwah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were evening. And at evening thou shalt say, Would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way thereof whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And of course, that's what happened to those people, the house of Israel. They went into slavery, and of course, they would sell you, to other slave traders and stuff like that, and you get carried off. And but that's the kind of thing that's going to happen again, because he says that he says, though your numbers, it says, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahuwah the Elohim. And they get to where there's not that many of them, and of course, when you think about the numbers of the people of the United States, of the British Commonwealth, of the Nordic people, the Belgians, the Swiss, the Northern French, the numbers that have been, multiplied from them has been in the billions. I mean, as the stars of heaven for number. And of course, now this was what did happen to the house of Israel. And, you can read about that too, about where they, went into captivity under Assyria, Sennacherib and all. And of course they tried to make a league with Egypt. They tried to, go and make and of course Egypt told them no, because they didn't want no part of Assyria. They knew they couldn't handle Assyria. And so they rejected Israel's attempts to try to get them to join in league with them. And so they was left to their own demise. And of course, like I said earlier, they got laid siege to by Sennacherib, and they ultimately they began to go into cannibalism. They were eating one another and their kids and stuff like that, because they during the siege their food run out, because they were under siege. I think it was like 4 years that they were under siege there in Samaria, and Ashdod or something like that was under siege, because they would start at the north up there and they worked their way down, until they come into Samaria and, capture one city at a time. And of course back then all cities were pretty much walled cities. That was just the way of it. But so there you have it. I just want to kind of bring it up that look around, see the things that are going on, and of course it started that way with the house of Israel. It didn't all happen all at one time. It's just like the tribulation period. the seals, the trumpets, and then the vials or the bowls. The trumpets are judgments. The bowls are wrath. There's two different, periods of time during that last 3.5 years of the 70th week of Daniel, that was determined upon the people of Israel. He always starts out with judgments, and they get, if you repent, because he always makes an out. If you'll repent, he says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and repent and turn from their wickedness, then will I hear from my place in heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. Well, but it's talking about, collectively. It's not just talking about, individual repentance, because I can repent and turn away from wickedness and all that, but it's not going to excuse the rest of the country, because each person's responsible for their own wickedness, and righteousness. I mean, it's not something that can be imparted to somebody else. We're responsible for our own. And it's like Assyria, when you read the story of Jonah, where he went over there to Nineveh and preached, that they were going to be, he didn't go over telling them to repent. He went over and told them that you're going to be destroyed in 40 days. He wanted them to be. He wanted them to be destroyed. And, and they did, from the king on down. Because the king, it just, God impressed it upon him that this guy ain't some lunatic, that's coming here preaching to you. No, I sent him here, and he's telling you exactly what's going to happen, and it is. And so the king, he knew that something was, there was something to it, and so he repented, and all the people repented, and they even went so far as to take and put ashes and sackcloth on their animals. I mean, that's just how serious it was. They knew within 40 days they were going to be destroyed. It might have been a destruction like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't know, but it would have come. But yet they repented. Well, that's the same thing with America. That's the only way that these judgments will be foregone. And of course, sin, there's a penalty for sin, and it can't be negated. It can be forestalled, but they still would be a price to pay for the iniquity and the sin. He'll forgive us of it, but there's a penalty for sin, and so even if America does repent collectively, there's still a cost associated with all the sin. I mean, it has to be paid. And so, my tea. I went to drinking the green tea. It don't seem to be quite as bad on me. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of, bring it out to you that we are watchmen. We need to be warning people. We need to be telling them to repent. And of course, I tell people, and they say, "Yeah, I know," but they don't repent, and which I have talked to one guy, and he said he did. He said he repented and asked the Father to forgive him and for Christ to come into him, and so and I'd been talking to him for a while about it, and I still now. Matter of fact, I give him a Bible because he didn't have one, and because I was always saying, well, man, you need to get in the scriptures. You need to be reading the Bible, and because that's where where truth is, And so I give him one, and I hope he is studying it, and that he'll, you know, stay true, and stay on the path. And that's what I hope for all of you, And as I always say, I want you to be good Bereans. You listen to what I say, receive it with an open mind. But don't just say, oh, okay, that's the way it is. No, no. You be good Bereans. You break this out. Because, Peter said, these are more noble than the Thessalonians because they received what we had to say with an open mind, but they studied the scriptures daily to see whether these things be so. So I want you to do the same thing. I want you to study the scriptures daily. And don't let Satan, get in there and say, oh man, you're tired, man. You don't feel like reading it today. One day ain't gonna hurt. Yeah, it will. And same with prayer. Even if you don't feel good, you still need to pray. And you still need to study this. And, that's what I want for you. I want you to come to the knowledge of the truth. And this is where it's found. This is where it's found. And this is the foundation for truth. And everything else can be judged from this. That's what I say, too. There's nothing wrong with studying extra biblical text and other things, to get some historical context and that kind of stuff, and reading some commentaries and all. Nothing wrong with that. But if it's contrary to what this says, then discard it. If it goes along with this and agrees with this, then you keep it. Because, Paul said, whatever is righteous, whatever is pure, whatever is of good report, whatever is, good. Meditate on these things. Think on these things. And so anything that is in light of the scriptures that is good, that is right, that is, of good report, then, think on them. Think on them things, study them things. Because they'll be beneficial to you. Because truth is truth. And, and if it's in light of the truth of this, if it goes along with it and it's true, then there's nothing wrong with studying it and learning from it and from people. So long as they're not, deceivers trying to lead you astray. So with that, I'm going to end here now. I'm going to put the scriptures in the description box down there so you can go read these yourself. And, and as I always say, I encourage you to read the scriptures around these, to get, the general, to get a greater context. But I just want you to know that we're called to be watchmen, that people are living like that, like what I read there in Isaiah. And, no, mama, not right yet. And so, we need to keep that in mind, that, that we're coming to the end of it. So we got all the more, we got to be warning people, warning them to repent and to turn from their wickedness and to, believe on the Messiah, and his death, burial, and resurrection. And so that's it for this week. I love you folks. Thank all of you that have watched the videos. I hope that you gain some knowledge, that we all gain some truth, and that we apply this stuff. It's not just a matter of hearing it. It says, be ye not hearers of the word, but doers. Don't just hear it, do it. And pray for, to have confidence and, to be strong and not to have fear. And, to be able to stand. in the evil day. And so with that, I'll see you folks on the next Shabbat, if Yahuwah is willing.